Hi, Dana. How's it going?
It's going very well. I am excited to talk to you. Thank you. John Economos has a lot of things that's going on. What we know, especially from the just aired episode 4, is Economos is kind of responsible, could be maybe, for the rebirth of White Dragon by framing him for everything that Peacemaker did.
It's an honest mistake.
It's an honest mistake, but it could have very serious repercussions. So where would you say is John's mindset with this right now?
By the time we're in episode 4, he's, I think, pretty self-conscious of the fact that he framed the Peacemaker's father, in a mode, like he was rushed. He had no time, and so the first thing that popped into his head, and this is something that's going to come back in later episodes. We're not done with this thing by any means. It has set off a chain reaction that also damages the relationship between Economos and Peacemaker. And that's not a good relationship to begin with. So it gets even worse. Yeah.
Should he be fearful for his life?
No, not fearful. Uncomfortable for sure. Embarrassed, yes. Those are all things that are just part of Economos' nature in general. This guy doesn't like conflict. He doesn't like having to fight or get into arguments. And now he's just triggered an avalanche of conflict.
One of the things that we have is Judomaster.
Yeah.
You got into a fight and you won, and then he was shot.
Yeah. I don't know if I call it a fight that I got into. Hitting a guy when he's down after a car accident is a pretty one-sided fight. But to Economos, he was really stoked that he took out the guy who beat the crap out of Peacemaker and Vigilante, and hey, I'm just a regular computer dude. I'm the one who brought this guy in. But as you see in this latest episode 4, that it doesn't last very long.
It doesn't. Does he want to get out of the van and see more action?
Yes and no. I think that Economos is definitely wary about doing anything outside of the office. That's way outside his comfort zone. But I think he's kind of jealous of all these people that he works with, getting to do this really heroic, adventurous shit, even though he's terrified of it. And you see a perfect example of that in episode, I think, 2, where Adebayo comes running into the office. She's just on a really high level of adrenaline going, we just got shot at. We got shot at. Have you ever been shot at? And you can see Economos just really dejected and sad that he's never been shot at, but also he doesn't want to get shot at. He doesn't want to put himself in a place where he might get shot at. But that all starts happening, It's so part of him is terrified of this, but also I think part of it is just really digging it, especially when it works out in his favor.
Right. Now, one of the things that was interesting though, it seems that he's okay with killing kids. Even though he's not pulling the trigger, he didn't seem to question the mission.
Oh, well, I think he does have a problem with killing kids. We see that in the Suicide Squad when Amanda Waller is threatening, Idris Elba's character's daughter. Economos is like, oh my God, she's gonna kill his kid. That's not cool. Still feels the same way. But Economos knows that. Well, now Peacemaker knows it, but in the 3rd episode, Peacemaker still wasn't aware of what butterflies were. So Economos is he knows that these are people that are basically already dead. They've been taken over by these alien butterflies. So I think to Economos, he realizes you're not really killing a kid. But yeah, I think he's got a pretty decent moral compass.
Going with the butterfly thing, in episode 3, it appears that he was sharing feelings with Clemson. He was just kind of getting close. But then we know in episode 4 that he's overtaken by a butterfly. I'm wondering, because it seemed like they operate and they're just robotic with the host. I'm wondering, how does that impact the relationship between John and Clemson? Is he the first one to recognize that something is not right? Because technically he's maybe the closest to him?
When it happened, when the butterfly inversion happened. But I think if you remember the first scene with Economos and Murn, when they're outside of that house and they have that scene where Murn is hanging, drilling a camera up into a tree and he's standing on a ladder. And Economos is like, you never talk about your feelings? You've never mentioned your feelings? And he's like, no. He already seems But
Oh,
we don't know that at this point. But he's like a machine.
oh,
But to be fair, somebody in that position, in those positions are usually machine-like. Like Amanda Waller is pretty hard.
yes.
You know. So I don't know. We'll definitely find out more about Murn. And yeah, this last episode 4, was such a great one for Murn as well. My two favorite performances were Murn and Vigilante. Vigilante was just amazing in this episode.
Now we know by the last kind of frame that the butterflies, people have been taken over by the butterflies all over.
Yeah,
Can you shed some light on whether or not the butterflies choose their host by a certain position, or is it just random?
We're going to find that out very soon. We shot this a year ago, so all the episodes kind of bleed into each other.
Right.
I think in the next episode or two, you're going to find out for sure. I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah, we find out a lot about the butterflies coming up.
Can you say, because Clemson is part of the Black Ops, that makes him more of a threat to their mission?
Interesting. James and I had discussions about Murn specifically as we were shooting, or I would read a script and then he'd be like, what did you think about this? And my take was usually different. Not usually, but a lot of times, especially with Murn. Oh, that's interesting. And I'd say, why? What's the actual answer? He's like, no, it's just interesting. So I still have questions. I've only showed me the first 3 episodes. So I just watched the 4th episode this morning. I have not seen any of the other episodes. So I'm waking up first thing in the morning and watching these for the first time. And I'm not in a lot of the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Like in episode 4 in the prison, I'm not there. So there's a lot of stuff that I was just completely forgot that this was even in the script. So this is all kind of unwinding for me as well. The stuff with Goff and the butterfly last night, I was like, oh my God, I completely forgot about that.
Oh no. Okay, so you're relearning along with the rest of us.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, I was wondering if you can remember the whole dance sequence that is the intro for the show. Now with more perspective, is that kind of symbolic to the butterflies? Because it's very robotic and it kind of lacks a little bit of personality, but it's hilarious at the same time.
I don't know. I think I actually never even thought about that. You're the first person that's mentioned that as far as the dance number being symbolic of the butterflies. But that was a definite note, was being expressionless through the dance. And that was actually the hardest part of shooting it, was people kept smiling, because when you're dancing, it's fun and you smile. So James would be like, all right, we got to do that over. Danielle, you were smiling. you can't smile. No, I know a move at the very end of the dance. It's really subtle, where everyone kind of just puffs their arms out just slightly from their side. And I thought it was, because of the eagle. It's right when the eagle comes in, we're kind of puffing our wings like the eagle. But I don't know. That's a very interesting thought, and I wouldn't say no, but I couldn't say yes. Sorry, all my answers are so vague.
It's okay. Is Eagle CGI or a puppet?
God, everything about it. We had a stuffed, not an actual stuffed, eagle, but there was an eagle doll that was pretty realistic looking, that they would just put into a scene for a minute for us to look at, so we knew height-wise where we should be looking. But then they would take it out, and there's nothing there. Nothing is 100% computer graphic.
We also have the addition of Vigilante. Can you say or remember, how does he change the dynamic of the group?
He's a wild card, and he definitely got some mental health issues, I think. I think as we go on, we find out a lot of people in the crew have issues. We see it in episode 3 when Peacemaker's talking about his dad with hardcore, and her reaction is dad. We're learning that all people are without fault or have had great relationships growing up, and that includes obviously Vigilante, who I think is probably the most unhinged of all the characters. As we go on in the season and get more involved with the fight against butterflies, he proves to be a really strong ally. The fact that he can fight
we have Judomaster, there is White Dragon, we have the butterflies, there's a gorilla, Charlie, that's missing. Is there any more things that you can say in terms of maybe villains or the mission that might be added into it?
Well, I think the two main antagonists in the series are obviously the butterflies. I mean, that's our whole mission revolves around that. And then, there's this whole subplot, going on with another, threat that is Peacemaker's father, who's horrible and kind of figures into all of it as far as the story goes. And I think, piling in more villains would be overkill. So I can't say there aren't any more villains, but, don't expect to see someone new every week.
Should we pay attention to Charlie, who's missing, the gorilla?
Something like that that's introduced, like they wouldn't focus on it in a scene if, there wasn't. It's like Chekhov's gun. Chekhov said if you introduce a gun on stage, it's going to go off at some point,
Okay.
So, people, if you see something in any TV show or movie, like, if they turn focus from the camera in the main scene to something that's on TV, usually see it again.
Okay.
But I would rely on a heavy appearance. But yeah.
Okay. And then lastly, I was wondering, can you talk about the evolution of John Economos? Because in from the first episode, he's in the van, he's doing the tech stuff, and then you kind of see him getting more involved with the fighting. Even though he has the asthma attack, he's a little bit more hands-on. They trust him with Judomaster. How is that evolution looking into the second half of the season?
I think Economos is getting more, without even realizing it, he's getting more confident and he's becoming more capable in areas of his job that normally wouldn't even be an issue, or present themselves. Like we've established, he's a computer guy. Computer guys never go out and get in fights, but this is a really small group of people who are really the only ones who kind of know about the butterflies and all this stuff. So, he's growing, and he's loving it, I think, to some extent. Like his little celebration dance when he knocks out Judomaster, like he's realizing that he does have some skills and he can perform when he needs to. So that's going to keep happening throughout the series. I mean, we have to have an arc for this character, so it can't just end here,
Right. And lastly, I was wondering, what keeps John from just now walking away from it all?
That's a great question. Especially, I think he, maybe it's economic status in the world, and why I'm just telling myself, you don't walk away from a job unless you have one lined up. So maybe he would walk away if someone was like, hey, I'm going to make you a manager at this bank. I think maybe the economist would be like, see you later, Murn. I'm going to Bank of America. Peacemaker is definitely pushing his buttons and testing that question out for sure.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for speaking with me. I look forward to more of the show and the alien invasion. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dana. I appreciate it.
No problem.